Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Weight management tips.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Nutrition Radio. We're finishing out season 1 of the podcast that brings you news and tips to help you stay, healthy and lean. Today, we're going to dive into an important topic, reducing sugar intake. I couldn't just leave you hanging after leaving you that news about how bad everybody thinks artificial sweeteners are. So what's somebody to do? What's a person to do? Well, excessive sugar consumption, I think has been linked to various health issues, obesity, heart disease, diabetes. And as a sidebar, that's different from when I was in grad school, when sugars as carbs rather than fats were often considered quote unquote clean burning. But of course, that was sort of in an exercise physiology context, and we have to think about glycogen economy, right? Carbs in, carbs out. Anyway, we'll be analyzing some tips that may resonate or may seem frustratingly obvious based on some posts from the American Heart Association to help you cut down on sugar and improve your overall well-being. So let's get started. Okay, tip number 1, read food labels. The American Heart Association advises us to be mindful of hidden sugars in our food. When shopping, take a few extra seconds and read the label, both the nutrition facts panel and the ingredients list. Look for ingredients like high fructose corn syrup, sucrose, dextrose, other forms of added sugar. So we're talking about things that are, ending in OSE. If they're high in the ingredients list, there's more. So they're listed in order of content. While you're at it, also be sure to look for single-digit amounts of sugar alcohols. Those don't affect blood sugar in the same way as traditional sugars do, but they can cause all kinds of gastric distress, flatulence, and that sort of thing. By being aware of what's in your food, you can make more informed choices and select products with lower sugar, or at least lower added sugar content. Tip number 2, probably a no-brainer for most of us. Swap sugary drinks for healthier alternatives. Soda, energy drinks, fruit juices, even some weight gainer powders can contain huge amounts of added sugar. I sometimes grimace when I see a morbidly obese person drinking sugar-filled pop, full-on sugar pop. It's just one of those things. I'm surprised that people even do that. I'll go to a kid's birthday party and see 2 liters of the stuff. I forgot that it even existed. So instead, try replacing these beverages with water, unsweetened tea. You really can learn to like the taste of your favorite tea. Tea is not just one thing, just like coffee is not just one thing. Learn to appreciate those natural flavors, flavored water. If you crave the fizziness of soda, consider opting for sparkling water or make your own fruit-infused water with a burst of lemon or lime or orange or some type of extract, natural flavor. Tip number 3, choose whole foods over highly processed foods, but do keep in mind that not all processing is bad. I've seen the IFT even critique dietitians about overstating that processing equals bad. Processing could equal added protein or pre and probiotics, that kind of thing, fibers, which are often prebiotics. Typically identified processed foods like candies, cookies, pastries, obviously they're notorious for their high sugar content. Even canned fruits, of course, can be in syrup rather than water. The American Heart Association encourages us to opt for whole foods instead. Fresh fruits, veg, whole grains, lean proteins, that is, lean protein sources. I dislike it when people confuse proteins with protein foods or protein sources. Of course, proteins aren't sugars. So look for lean protein sources, healthy fat sources. Again, they not only provide essential nutrients, but also tend to be lower in added sugars. Focus on building meals around these kinds of ingredients, and then don't worry as much if there's a little bit of sugar somewhere. What's next? Tip number 4, be mindful of portion sizes without obsessing. I've never been a huge fan of trying to eat postage stamp-sized portions of your favorite foods. Even if you're consuming foods with naturally occurring sugars, moderation is the key, though. Fruits, dairy, obviously these things have natural sugars. Those are part of a balanced diet, quote-unquote balanced diet. However, it is important to keep portion sizes in check on some level to avoid excess sugar intake. Sometimes just eating more slowly can allow your body to have a natural hormonal response and lead to less overall intake when you're quote-unquote dieting or periods of time when you're less active. Remember, authorities like the American Heart Association, they recommend no more than 6 teaspoons or 25 grams of added sugar per day for women and 9 teaspoons or 36 grams of sugar a day for men. A single bottle of pop could easily double that full daily limit. I don't think most people realize how limited sugar intake is supposed to be. Moving on, tip number 5, plan and prepare your meals. This is old school bodybuilding kinds of stuff and fitness prep, I get it. But taking the time to plan and prepare your meals, you just have greater control over what goes into your food. You won't be as vulnerable to the food industry, right? That's really about impulse buys and indulgence. Cook at home whenever possible, like dedicated pre-prep time on Sunday afternoons. As restaurant meals, obviously they're going to contain more hidden sugars most of the time. When you prepare your meals, you can choose healthier ingredients, control portion sizes and put them in Tupperware containers, however you need to do it. Experiment with different flavors that don't rely on added sugar. One note of caution, though, I've even seen high fructose corn syrup in my grocery store bought chicken breasts. So again, read labels. Tip number 6, one of my favorites, gradually reduce your sugar intake. I'm even a big fan of just retraining your palate to actually want less sweetness, right? By titrating down just a half a packet of your usual non-sugar sweetener. That way you're not going cold turkey if you're not used to stuff like black coffee and completely plain tea. Some of the recommendations that I've seen, even from the American Heart Association, they just look like, almost impossible to just jump right into. So this is a way to kind of dip into the pool. Some of us like to get into the pool slowly, a cold pool. Some like to plunge in. It kind of depends on your personality. But cutting out sugars and just sweetness in general completely, again, can be very challenging. Cravings and things that's just going to make your life really frustrating. Instead, aim for gradual progress. Start by reducing the amount of sugar or sweetener that you add. Again, it could be to coffee, tea, maybe some type of dessert. You normally sprinkle sugar on things that you might not have to. Just by making these small, more sustainable changes over time, you can develop healthier habits without feeling quite as deprived. Tip number 7, find healthier alternatives for sweet cravings. We all have those moments when we crave something sweet. Rather than reaching for a candy bar or a sugary dessert, or even having them on hand, right? Don't shop hungry and leave this stuff at arm's length. That's just a prescription for disaster. Explore healthier alternatives. Fresh fruits like berries or sliced apples actually lower on the carbohydrate content, lower glycemic index, or have fiber and all those phytochemicals, things like that. They can really satisfy a sweet tooth while providing beneficial nutrients, right? Like antioxidants and, again, fiber. Keep them easily accessible. The good ones in a bag right inside the fridge. Reach in or on the fridge door, in a basket, a fresh basket, something like apples. And again, with the pre-prep, slicing the apples first, put them in a little baggie, maybe with a tiny bit of lemon juice so they don't turn real brown, or put aside some berries, some thawed berries, so you could just throw in some granola with them or something along those lines. Make it so easy and convenient. Other alternatives would be, again, an approach of using limited amounts of natural sweeteners like stevia. I know it's even been in the crosshairs lately, but spices like ginger, allspice, cinnamon, depends on your taste. Extracts like almond and vanilla or orange and lemon to add flavor without relying on excess sugar. You will come to appreciate these over time. Most people do. And the truth is, once you get used to less sweet things and you actually prefer them, go ahead and use a teaspoon or two of actual sugar in your beverages or on whatever food that you're doing. That's such a tiny, tiny amount compared to what you might see in like a sugar bomb drink or a dessert. Okay, one more. Tip number 8, get support from friends and family. One of the mistakes that I see done a lot in exercise science that I don't see done quite as much in dietetics, to be honest, is that people in exercise science, they usually do like some screening or assessments and they just start programming, or teaching. You have to have buy-in from that person, yes, readiness, also social support. Imagine if your significant other, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, just isn't on board with the way you eat and actually is irritated when you try to eat a certain way. That can make things very difficult. So you need to have a support system. It's just going to make a world of difference. Share your goals with your loved ones and ask for their support as you move toward this. Hey, I really want to start cutting sugar out. Are you interested in doing that? Let's brainstorm together, right? Let's see what we can do to kind of cut down all this added sugar. Even online communities or local groups, like Iron Radio has a listeners page. Go, ask those guys what they think. I've noticed that Chris Sugart and his wife, Danny, great advice as far as things like overnight oats and trying to reduce a lot of the crappy processed sugar kinds of things. even desserts for those of us with, the occasional sweet tooth. But that's all the time we've got today. If you like this content, please let me know. This is season 1, coming to a very end. We are on episode 98. I need to know how much people want to keep seeing this kind of stuff. I am going to extend these episodes to a longer format and have some fun co-host on. We'll try it for the rest of 2023. The very first video that we shared was, hey, this is about 2023. We're going to kind of bookend that and then see where we are. Regardless of that, though, we're going to be revamping Iron Radio in a new way now that my work no longer prevents it. One last thing, please leave a review or maybe a comment on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at Lawnman07. It's the Nutrition Radio, Iron Radio Network. Also on iTunes, which we're really not on the charts right now. We need to climb up those charts. And we need to do it with you. Otherwise, this is a labor of love. It's not worth doing. So thanks for considering that, and we'll see you next time.
The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.